Cunningham. Is that better? So I am Angie Cunningham. I'm here to speak about the violence happening in our schools statewide. Unfortunately, our children do not have a safe environment where they can attend school and obtain an education. 1 in 3 children are bullied. That will often end up in being physical attacks. Every day, many children that are bullied are physically assaulted. The other children at school videotape these assaults. There are actual social media sites in all the school districts in Delaware where these videos are then played and circulated. So not only does the child get assaulted at school, it's then recorded, it's put on social media, it's circulated, they go back to school, they're bullied because they got beat up. So they now have the injuries of their physical assault, they're now emotionally and mentally harmed. When parents try to speak out at school board meetings, we are told what we can and cannot say. We are told we have to follow policies. We cannot call out people. We cannot say anyone's incompetent. We cannot be negative. However, what parents do not understand and realize, at a public board meeting, it creates a public forum for the public to speak. Therefore, you are protected under the First Amendment. If it has anything to do with the school board's authority, you are allowed to speak what you have to say. Superintendents fall under the school board's authority. So therefore, if the superintendents in the districts are not doing their job, you have the right to speak that and to make it known. Because if not, why are you there? They have to know where the problems lie. When parents speak at board meetings, the board will not respond back to you. They have to be deferred, and then you never hear any follow-up at all. So everything that you've spoken about, everything that you've mentioned, all of your ideas, there was no follow-up. I myself spoke at a school board meeting last month. I spoke about violence in the school. I spoke about someone that was very near and dear to me that was physically assaulted on the school property a year and a half ago, and how that person's life has drastically changed, and so has the life of her family. So as I spoke about that, I got no response from the board or from the superintendent. I made it known that the superintendent was aware of the violence in the school, that I had pleaded a year and a half ago when this incident happened to please make changes so these things did not still go on and keep occurring. However, at the end of my statement, I ended it by making a quote from President Donald Trump, which at that time I was laughed at by the superintendent. The board members were snickering at me. The superintendent then proceeded to try to intimidate me. However, I will not be intimidated and I will not be silenced. So that video from that school board meeting has had over 1,100 views. The video from the previous meeting had 200 views. So I think parents are finally realizing that we have to speak up, we cannot be silenced. Since that meeting, I've had a lot of support. I've had a lot of people reach out to me because of how I was treated unethically at that board meeting. I emailed the board. I demanded a public apology because the board is supposed to intervene and protect the public speakers. No one intervened on my behalf. So the superintendent gave an apology on the school district page. However, he felt he was the victim. Never once was it addressed about the violence that was happening in the schools. Never once did he address how I had been treated at that meeting. This is why parents do not want to speak up. When we speak up, we're targeted, we're labeled as terrorists, we're laughed at, we're mocked. But one voice cannot do it all. So all the people that have contacted me, I have asked them to please show up at the board meetings, let them know what is happening in the schools. A week before the board meeting that I attended, another student, a male student, was punched in the face 3 times by a female student. he made a comment to her, "You hit like the third grader," because his father told him, no matter what, you never hit a girl. He then walked out of the room to get himself together. He came back in and sat down. The female student went over and banged him in his head several times with her Chromebook. She was suspended. The young man was suspended because he made an offensive comment that she hit like a third grader. That is what is happening in our schools. A lot of the students that are violent are repeat offenders. Suspension is not the answer. We have to find ways that the consequences matter, so they learn, you have this behavior, this is your consequence. 3 or 5 days sitting home playing your video games is not a consequence. So we have to do better with finding consequences to fit the behavior. The Delaware Department of Education reported 5,726 students statewide were involved in acts of violence in the 20 to 21 school year. In the past 5 years, nationwide, suicide has been a leading cause among teens from 15 to 19. Children are suffering from mental health at an all-time high. 2022 had the most school shootings to date. School shootings have increased 163% since 2020. So we have to ask ourselves, what is happening to our youth? The answer to that, we as parents have trusted that the school would protect our children. We have sat back thinking the schools, the administration were doing their jobs. They have not. It's time that we come forward and we take a stand and we do not let them silence us. We do not let them tell us what we can and cannot say. We have the right to say whatever needs to be said to protect our children. Our children have paid the price of our lack of holding the schools accountable to do their jobs. Unfortunately, in Delaware, I don't know how every other state works, but in Delaware, the board members are the ones that vote or sign in the superintendent. So in all of our little rural areas here in Delaware, everybody knows everybody. The families go back 5, 6 generations. So you're simply voted on the board because you're part of the Little Boys, Little Girls Club. Doesn't matter if you have the ethics or the morals or the best interests of our children at heart. You're voted in simply because of who you are, who your dad knows, and who your grandfather knew. Then they turn around and they vote in a superintendent who they know. It does not matter if he's competent or he is not doing his job. It's simply, like I said, the Little Boys and Girls Club. So we have to make a change. We have to get out and vote. We have to vote for board members who are here for our children, that have the best interest of our children at heart. It is time to stop just letting people get voted in based on who they are and who they know.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just say one more thing about Angie's in the middle of a lawsuit? Can you hear me? She's in the middle of a lawsuit, and that's why she's being discreet in what she's saying. But you can go to YouTube, look up Laurel School District, March, what was the date?
March 15th.
March 15th, and hear the whole story. It's atrocious. Her daughter has a permanent brain injury, and no one responded. It's a devastating story, so you can go and listen to that. So she's very brave for being here. So.